Everyone wants the easy route. Supplements, apps, personalized optimal programs, all promising transformation without ever asking you to actually hurt. And yet, most transformative experience in human history, the ones that truly built resilience, endurance, and raw capability, have never come in a pill, a gadget, or hashtag. They come in pain, fatigue, and deliberate exposure to stress. And that is your first truth of today. Suffering is never optional. It is the signal, the stimulus, the language your body uses to tell you it's ready to adapt if you are willing to listen. Most people treat recovery like a spa day. They schedule it, measure it, optimize it, and then act surprised when their strength is brittle, their endurance fragile, and their mind incapable of focus beyond the next trivial distraction. Recovery isn't the absence of stress, recovery is your response to stress. It's a physiological and neurological recalibration that occurs after you deliberately expose to challenge, discomfort, stress, chaos, and suffering. Without stress, without pain, without a little bit of suffering, your muscles, connective tissue, nervous system, and mitochondria stagnate. Without stress, adaptation does not happen. Without stress, you are just meat in slow decline. And this is where the concept of stress signal adaptation comes in. Stress is not your enemy, it's a teacher. The catch is that if you must apply it intentionally and dosed with precision. Too little, nothing happens. Too much, and the system will collapse. The sweet spot is a very narrow spot, but it exists, and it's where growth lives. Your body is not a fragile object to be protected. It is a complex adaptive system tuned over millennia to respond to exactly the kind of stimulus most people avoid. So when you feel discomfort creeping in, do not recoil. Do not rationalize it away. Lean into it because suffering is the stimulus you truly need, and it's the only thing capable of teaching your body, your mind, and your spirit how to evolve beyond mediocrity. Now that we actually established that suffering is a stimulus, let's get into what actually happens when you stress your body, the nuts, the bolts, the cellular chaos that turns comfort into adaptation. This isn't the pep talk, this is physiology lecture disguised as a wake-up call. So strap your ass in. The first concept you need to understand in all this is hormesis. It's a fancy term for something incredibly simple. Small, controlled doses of stress make you stronger. It doesn't matter if the stress comes from a kettlebell, a sandbag, a mountain run, a sauna, a fasted workout, or even a mental challenge that makes your nervous system scream. The principle is the same. Applied intelligently, stress triggers adaptation. Ignore the stress or apply it haphazardly, and your body stagnates or breaks. Hormesis is the fundamental mechanism that turns a fragile human into something anti-fragile. If you survive it, you come out stronger. Even on the cellular level, your mitochondria, the little power plants in every cell, will multiply. And suddenly the energy systems that used to sputter under demand become efficient and abundant. Your antioxidant systems upregulate. No more supplementing the bullshit. Meaning the free radicals that normally rot your tissues are going to be neutralized by your own making. You are making your own cells more resilient. Hormonal cascades will sharpen. You're thinking your cortisol, your catecholamines, your growth hormones, all swinging into action in a way that, when dosed correctly, doesn't destroy you, but will educate your system. Your immune function will fortify. Every system that can adapt will do so, creating a human that tolerates more, performs more, and recovers faster. Stress doesn't just make you tougher, it will rewire your entire body to resist future stress. It's cellular level insurance against life's chaos. Of course, with all things, there is the dark side, allostatic load. Chronic, unrelenting stress is not hormesis, it's system fatigue. The same chemistry that builds you, like cortisol surges, catecholamine releases, can also destroy you if never cycled down. Now, I've lived this personally. Weeks of overtraining, ignoring recovery, chasing volume in my own ego. My HRV tanked, my nervous system screamed, my markers for inflammation spiked. So I wasn't becoming tougher, I was burning down the control center. Adaptation is a very fine-tuned process. If you mismanage it or let someone else manage it for you, you will probably end up collapsing. And don't kid yourself. Chronic low-grade stress from life's modern comforts, such as endless notifications, poor sleep, processed food, counts. It's not glamorous, but it is very fucking real. At the cellular level, the body has its own response mechanisms. Heat shock proteins act like microscopic repair crews, clean up damaged proteins. Mitochondrial biogenesis ensures that energy production keeps pace with demand. Autophagy, your cell's recycling program, sweeps out broken organelles and makes room for new, better components. Pain, soreness, fatigue are not punishments. They're signals that your body is remodeling. Adaptation is not comfort. Adaptation is organized chaos at the microscopic level. Your cells are tearing some themselves down and building themselves up again in a way that makes you fundamentally stronger, even if you're crying quietly on the garage floor. Yes, that still counts. Most people are very afraid of this level of stress, especially if you are dosing it regularly. The self care culture tells you that stress kills, that cortisol is your enemy. Yes, chronic stress can kill you, but so does the couch, Karen. The difference is intelligent, intentional stress builds resilience. Mismanaged stress will destroy it. Understanding this distinction is the difference between mediocrity and chaos. So, how do we translate all of this science into practical understanding? You dose stress strategically. You push your metabolic and mechanical systems, then allow recovery in a controlled manner. And you have to track your signals HRV, lactate spikes, perceptual fatigue. All of these are just communication from your body, a little feedback loop saying, I am reorganizing, I am learning, I am adapting. And if you ignore the signals, an adaptation will stall. And you turn chaos into progress. In short, stress is a teacher. Hormesis is the curriculum. Allostatic load is the warning about skipping class, and your cellular machinery is the student body rewiring itself every session. This is the biology of suffering, the microscopic chaos that produces macroscopic capability. The more you understand it, the more you can intentionally leverage it, and the less you'll be fooled by anyone selling comfort as progress. And now that we understand the biology, let's talk about how to actually dose stress in a way that makes you stronger instead of just tired. This is where most people completely screw it up. They either tiptoe through training like a yoga retreat, or they slam their bodies into oblivion and wonder why they feel broken, depressed, or fragile. The secret, yes, it's a secret because 95% of gyms will not teach it, is controlled chaos. And no, I'm not talking about going in and doing some random workout every single freaking day. Training is not about random suffering. It's about strategically layering stress so that every session, every rep, every metabolic challenge becomes a signal for adaptation. Here's how I like to structure it. I call it a multi-session day, training day, if you have the time. Because one dose of stress is rarely enough to push your system into real adaptation. And how you go about doing it is truly up to you, though. Because we're not chasing Instagram aesthetics on this place, we're chasing systems that survive, endure, and thrive. First up is your morning durability session. This is your heavy lifting. Before work, before kids get up, you can go to the garage and you put in the work. Squats, presses, deadlifts, sandbag carries, kettlebell complexes. Mechanical and neural stress dominate here. Tendons, ligaments, fascia. All the connective tissue that quietly dictates your longevity are forced to adapt in this moment. Your nervous system is firing on multiple circuits, tuning motor patterns, reinforcing coordination. Pain is inevitable here. Fatigue is expected. But that's the nuance. Mechanical stress will build resilience, not ego. Those extra reps are not a trophy, they are information for your system. This is what strong feels like, and you're going to remember it now. For your midday, your lunch hour, your engine session, now we're shifting the lens from structure to metabolism. Metabolic conditioning, oxidative circuits, high rep kettlebell swings, rowing, running intervals. This is where your mitochondria multiply, your vasculature adapts, and your fuel systems diversify. Glycogen depletion, lactate accumulation, oxidative stress, all of it intentional. This is the stress your body craves if you want capacity, not just mass. This is where most people quit though. Not because it's hard, but because it's boring, slow, and you're sweating instead of posting. But this boredom is also where your mitochondria learn to tolerate chaos. For the afternoon, this is your endurance. You're off work now, kids come home, they're working on their homework, it's time to hit the road. This is where we hit psychological and systemic stress, long runs, weighted carries, prowler pushes, hybrid circuit chaos. By now, the muscles have been taxed, the energy system has been stressed, your mind is whispering for mercy. This is where the training turns into education. Psychological stress rewires fear, reinforces persistence, and teaches your mind to tolerate discomfort without quitting. So you're not just training muscle, you're training the central processing unit of your entire organism. And yes, your nervous system is screaming at you the whole way. That's fine. Your nervous system isn't your enemy, it's your coach. It just happens to yell through pain instead of words, and that's okay. Each session throughout the entire day, and if you don't have the time, layer it across the entire week, will send a very different stress signal. Mechanical, metabolic, psychological, all overlapping, all cascading. Stack them wrong and you will collapse. Stack them right and you evolve, you adapt, you become better. The problem is a lot of people will fail in all of this because they chase volume without understanding how the signals interact. Your connective tissue can handle a lot, but your mitochondria might be fried. Your mind can tolerate discomfort, but your joints may revolt. Adaptation is about timing, intensity, and overlap. Think of it as tuning an orchestra. Play all the instruments too loudly at once, and it's just noise. Play them with precision, and it's a symphony. This is where adaptive reserve capacity comes in. You buffer against chaos. You build it by pushing the edge of failure, not past it daily. There's a difference between deliberate exposure and reckless abandonment. Every session should challenge, educate, expand that buffer so that over time the body's tolerance to mechanical stress, metabolic load, and psychological discomfort will increase. This is what's going to separate people who recover quickly from people who can tolerate the most stress without falling apart. And it's not about who sleeps more or eats better, it's about who can handle the chaos of performance repeatedly, intelligently, without systemic collapse. Every session is data. Fatigue, soreness, HRV, mental exhaustion, they're all feedback loops telling you where you are relative to your adaptive potential. You need to listen to these signals, respect them, and push your reserve capacity higher. Pain and discomfort through all this are not going to be enemies. They are going to be the communication channels between your physiology and your intent. Training needs to be controlled chaos. You dose mechanical, metabolic, psychological stress deliberately. You allow recovery and adaptation in between. You monitor your signals. You iterate. And you embrace discomfort not because suffering is virtuous in itself, but because it is the only mechanism your body understands for improvement. Remember, the strongest athletes are not those who recover fastest. They are those who can tolerate the most stress without falling apart. Those who can understand that chaos, when applied with intelligence, creates adaptation, resilience, and anti-fragility. Every multi-session day, every stacked session, every rep at the edge, that is deliberate chaos, that is training. And when done correctly, it forges a human that does not merely endure life, but thrives under it. Now, we've talked about stress, hormesis, the careful orchestration of controlled chaos. Now let's step across the line from theory into harsh realities of human experimentation, my own body's war zone. Understanding adaptation isn't just about biology in the abstract, it's about what happens when your systems start flirting with collapse, when the margin between improvement and breakdown is terrifyingly thin. These days, I am dealing with vascular and neurological dysfunction, a disease that's been going on for nearly 5, almost 6 years now. Paresthesia, presynchrony, systematic fragility. These are not hypothetical complications from overtraining blogs. They're real, constant reminders that stress dosing is no longer a casual science experiment. It's now become a high stakes game. Push too far, and the body signals immediate shutdown, lightheadedness, tingling extremities, the creeping sense that your nervous system might just hit the word abort. Push too little, and adaptation will stall. Decline sets in, tissues atrophy, mitochondria downregulate, and resilience evaporates. There is no middle ground unless you treat every session as precision medicine for a living organism. And we'll get into how movement is medicine at a later date. There's a paradox here. I am training adaptation from a body that is simultaneously breaking down from an unknown disease. Every session is data. Every crash is feedback. Heart rate variability, peripheral blood flow fluctuations, serotonin-related platelet dynamics shift. Yes, I actually do monitor that shift. These metrics are not abstractions. They are direct communication from my physiology, telling me where the hormetic sweet spot lies. I cannot ignore them because then the system will collapse. I have to respect them. And the body, fragile as it may be, can still adapt underneath this load. So grit is not just some mindset meme for me. It's a biological feedback loop of stress, failure, recalibration, survival, repeat. Most people fear breaking. They fear fatigue, pain, or fainting like it's a normal failure. But breaking is not catastrophe. It is a signal, a biological alert. Wrong dose, adjust, try again. Every tingle in my fingers, every pre-fainting sensation, every spike or dip in HRV is information of what is going on, a map of the edge between adaptation and collapse. My window is so narrow these days. I cannot ignore it, any of these signals, and where I cross from hormesis into maladaptation, a zone where repair lags behind damage, where systems fail instead of strengthening. And I need to understand it and push the adaptive envelope without destroying it. The takeaway behind all this in my own story is simple. If uncomfortable, adaptation and breakdown are not opposites. They are points on a continuum, so that every session, every rep, every physiological alarm is feedback. And the only way to get stronger, smarter, and more resilient is to listen, calibrate, and respect the edge. Survival is not luck. Thriving is not luck. It's precision. Because in the end, the edge is where learning lives and biology does not lie. We've walked through the cellular chaos, the layered sessions, and the razor's edge between adaptation and breakdown. This is where the forged grit philosophy meets hard biology, the place where suffering, adaptation, and the mindset enter. First, understand this. The goal will never be to eliminate stress. That's a fantasy sold to you by fitness influencers who have never endured anything beyond delayed soreness. Real growth, the kind that produces capability, resilience, and true autonomy, happens in the gap between what breaks you and what builds you. The distance between collapse and adaptation is your playground, and your job is to expand it. For every rep, every session, every uncomfortable breath is a lesson in human potential. Pain is never punishment, it is feedback. Discomfort isn't an obstacle, it's information. You either interpret it or your body interprets it for you, often by shutting down, crashing systems, or eroding your capability. Most people stop training when it hurts. They run the clock, rinse, and wait for the next prepackaged session that promises optimal results without friction. The Forge Grit methodology trains until they understand what the pain is actually teaching them. And that is a critical distinction. You don't need to suffer for the sake of suffering. You need to suffer intentionally. Observe and calibrate. Each twinge, each spike in fatigue, each subtle neural alarm is a data point in the continuous feedback loop. Respect it in your body. The mitochondria in mind rewrites itself to tolerate more, perform better, and recover faster. Adaptation is never granted. It's earned through exposure. Hormesis proves it. Controlled chaos proves it. Multi-session dosing proves it. Your mitochondria, heat shock proteins, your connective tissue, they don't care about your intentions, your mindset slogans, or your Instagram likes. They respond only to signal, to stimulus, to repetition within the hormetic sweet spot. If you avoid stress, nothing will happen. Avoid recklessly, and breakdown will ensue. Navigate carefully, intelligently, and consistently, and the body and mind will evolve. Adaptability is then a skill, and like all skills, it's only mastered only through repeated application under variable, escalating stress. And this is where the Forge Grit mindset enters, because there is no finish line. There is no ultimate goal. There's no moment where your adaptation is complete. Every experiment you do on yourself pushes the threshold slightly higher. The goal is to expand the edge, not cross it once. There is no perfect program, no optimal volume, no universal prescription. There's only a dynamic system responding to dynamic stressors. Your system, your stressors. Your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, your psychological tolerance. All of them are in constant dialogue. To stop learning from this conversation is to surrender your capacity. To embrace it is to practice infinite adaptation, where improvement is measured not in milestones, but in the margin between breakdown and growth. And this is where suffering transforms from a nuisance into a strategic tool. Pain is communication. Fatigue is instruction. Collapse is information. The body is constantly asking, how much can you take and what will you do with it? Most will ignore the question. The Forge Grit methodology answers it repeatedly, intelligently, and without ego. Stress is not the enemy. Comfort is. Predictably, training is the enemy. Unquestioning adherence to safety is an enemy. True adaptation thrives on discomfort, deliberate failure, and systemic observation. Here's your final takeaway, the end message of this entire video, the philosophical and physiological apex. If stress breaks you, you never built. If it shapes you, you are never broken. Every signal you get is a scream. It's a part of a continuous infinite feedback loop of stress, feedback, adaptation, evolution. And this is not motivational fluff. This is biology. It's neuroscience. This is the science of suffering. And when understood, internalized, and applied, it forges humans who do not merely endure, but thrive, evolve, and redefine the boundaries of capability. The goal is clear. Embrace the stress, interpret the signals, expand the edge. There is no finish line. There is only the adaptation loop, and it's continuous forever. It is here. And in the mess, the chaos, and discomfort, that is where the forged are born.